And then child socialization stuff is simple. The resource guarding we can do over Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so after today, you can set up that Zoom at your earliest convenience.
Oh, great.
We would need, this progresses pretty quick. Resource guarding is easier than people think it is. Realistically speaking, like, I can't make him share things, right? But avoiding like him getting a hold of something and guarding it from other dogs is very easy to do. Teaching him to release something that's in his possession, also easy to do.
That's the one that usually goes off best.
If you say leave it, he'll usually leave it unless there's other dogs around.
Well, that's when it becomes possible.
Yeah, that's. I mean, when there's competition, then it's more difficult, right?
Yeah.
So,
Does everything.
and leave it's more of like, I look at it as like I don't use leave it myself. I don't teach it. I teach like a default leave it, which is don't pick up crap off the ground, period. So then I don't even have to ever worry about stuff like that unless I give the dog permission. So if he likes sticks and he sees a stick, he knows I can't touch it. But if I pick it up and then engage with him and throw it, now it becomes an object that he can actively use. Okay. So the concepts are super simple. So we can. Is there anything that he really likes at home, like a bully stick, a bone, an antler, a Himalayan dog chew?
Yeah, he wants the frozen bone.
Bone marrow, but that's kind of a treat going here and there.
Sure. How long does that bone marrow last?
An hour.
Oh, so he can actually like eat it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. If there's anything, whether it be like a raw bone that you keep in the freezer, some kind of bone itself, I tend to stay away from like the fake nylon bones because dogs tend to more often not like them. I think it's because they don't get anything from it, and I know they say like chicken flavored and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah, we don't get that stuff.
okay. Is it because of the resource guarding, or is it just because you don't give them anything?
No, we give them bones all the time, but just like the bone marrow mostly.
Okay.
Or like bully sticks. We're giving him bully sticks, and he likes those.
Okay.
Those take a while for him to get to.
Sure. So like a bully stick, or like maybe a bigger bully stick, because I think they come in different sizes.
Yeah.
Because we would need something that he cannot demolish within 5 minutes.
Right.
And ideally something that he really loves. So it's something that we can repeatedly work with. Okay. Questions about any of that?
I think a bone marrow for that is really good.
Yeah, I've never done bone marrow. I mean, I
She
didn't know.
loves it. Like once it's unfrozen, and he can go at it for an hour without anybody bothering him. He's just very focused on that.
Are you guys able to remove stuff from him?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just other dogs.
It's
other dogs.
Okay.
And probably children.
Sure.
Or another adult.
Yeah.
That he doesn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Which is not
Ryan
like
Hood came over and tried to do it.
the resource guarding against people he doesn't know is normal. Okay, because you're his family, he trusts you, there's a relationship there. Like my dogs, if you try to take something from them, they'll growl at you. They won't bite you, but they'll growl at you, because they don't know you. So like technically you're stealing in their mind, right? But humans have this like mentality of like, I can take whatever I want from my dog type of deal, and they go, no, it's not how it works. This is how the dog world works, and this is how we go about addressing it. But I wouldn't assume. I always assume when I have a dog that I don't know, I assume they're a resource guarder. I assume they're a resource guarder, right?
Yeah.
And as I learn about the dog, then I go, okay, you don't have this issue. You don't have this issue. Because what happens is people come in with that full trust. The dog has something, they go to just grab it like, willy-nilly, and next thing you know, the dog goes crazy.
Yeah.
And it's because they assumed the dog was going to have any issues because maybe it was so friendly.
Right.
But friendly and guarding something is completely different. Okay? So what we'll start with is a review. We'll go down a bit. Just like, because we don't get conversation. And I'll have you show me just what you've been practicing this week, okay?
Right now, just show it?
Yep. Whenever you're ready. I won't have it in my life. What's your number been?
It's been 8:30, and he's been just fine. But also, we haven't been at a
Busy park.
busy park like this. It's usually just on the sidewalk.
Okay.
But there's no reason for that way, and I'm not going to take ownership.
How old is he again?
He's 2.
He's got like a little puppy face.
He does, and it hopefully never goes away. I mean, this has been pretty much training.
Yeah. Yep. Do you correct him for like when he tries to pull away from one of you?
Yes,
It's the
that's
same,
kind of what I just did
the
there.
same argument in different. When we got home from.
We all went once together.
Once together.
Did practice this.
Okay.
It was harder when we're together.
Oh, like side by side?
No, like I would like stand when I was like away. He kept wanting pictures.
Oh, so when we kept going towards her, I would then do a 180.
Sure.
And go farther away from her while he was next to me. And then once he got it right, I would start going back towards her. And then every time he started pulling towards her, I would just turn a 180 and make sure when we got to her finally, it was like this.
Okay. And you're tapping as you were turning?
Right now?
Well, when you did it.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course.
You're going to slow down. Slower. And stop. Okay. And what was up? Sorry, your number's 30? 30. Okay. So it's called handlers. Yep. Good. Okay. And go ahead and show me the same thing, just like how you work with them. Okay. One.
You're minimizing your behavior and saying.
Good. Go to slow down. So stop. Very good. All right. How are you guys feeling?
Good.
Getting used to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So that's good for week 1. So what we're going to cover for this week is the second half of heal. So last week we focused on teaching Toby, correct?
Yeah.
I was going to say, oh yeah, second. Teaching Toby to be mindful of you and to walk at your side. As long as he's at your side, you can just keep going. Okay. The second half of heal is now we want to give that communication back so that he knows what you're doing. So like before your stops here, I said slow down. Then you stop and allow him to be there at your side because he was being mindful. Because you know when you're going to stop, you know when you're going to turn. Okay. So we're going to add specific movements to communicate with Toby what we're doing. And then we're also going to title it, which is heal. Now we have an actual verbal on switch. Okay, so like this week it was let him do potty, and then just start tapping once you're ready, and do a default, right? So technically, now that we're going to add in that verbal cue, if you come out and you don't say anything to Toby, and you're just walking, and he starts to pull, sniff, peep, move through all that doggy stuff, and then once I cue the word heal, everything that we covered last week, everything that we covered today will then go into effect. Okay? Questions so far? Nope. All right. So the first part is super simple, which is to use that word heal then. Okay.
With the tap, so he knows.
So there will be no tapping. So heal. Well, the way we're going to associate it is we're going to say heal. We're going to begin moving. Okay. There's no tap here, as long as Toby follows. So for his instinct or his response right now should be to follow, just because tapping is meant to do that, right? So by default, when you say heal, like he doesn't know what that means. He will never know what it means. He'll just associate. I hear this word, and every time I hear this word, we start walking. That he'll associate, it means, oh, that's when I move to the side, and that's when I'm supposed to be in this pocket. Okay. You would only tap if Toby got out of line, right? So that turning and tapping will always be in effect. So if, like, let's say he's great, and the next 6 months, no mistakes, whatever, and then one day he like forgets, and then he gets ahead of him, you would turn and tap to correct him.
And then do you say heal at that point when
No.
you're tapping?
Good question. So we only say heal when we go from stationary to motion. Okay. So let's say he's pottying. All right, we're done. Heal.
It will
Tap, sorry. Heal. We walk, right? If he doesn't go towards me because he's maybe distracted, Now we have to reinforce. So the cue of heel is telling him, okay, now we're starting, right? We're giving him a little bit of a gap to respond, and it's pretty obvious if he's going to walk or not, right? As soon as he's not going to walk, I just keep moving and I remote until he catches up, and then he'll tie 2 and 2 together, okay? Once we're already moving, let's say he pulls to the side, I wouldn't say heel, I would just tap him to reinforce. If he pulled the head, I would turn and tap to reinforce. We never repeat that command, okay, in order to correct it. So like let's say, for example, with the sit, you say sit, gives you the position, he gets up. What does everybody do?
Start it again.
Boom, right? The way a dog brain works is when you say sit and they break it and you say sit again, it's a whole new command. You're resetting. Nothing said, don't get up from the sit.
Gotcha.
Right? So if I say sit, this happens, dog gets up, tap, 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 dog sits, that's it. I don't repeat the word. So dog thinks, if I break position, this kicks in automatically until I go back in position, and the only way to avoid this is to just not break from position. Does that make sense? So it's a super simple concept, but everybody repeats, right? One, because we're very verbal, but two, with dogs, it's just very common. Everybody says sit like 100 times, right? I say it once and then I make it happen. If the dog breaks position, I don't say anything, I just tap. So eventually the dog will sit for 30 minutes and not get up, because it knows if I get up, I'm gonna get tapped. Okay? So we never repeat. Anytime you say a new command, you're overriding the old, even if it's the same one. So sit to sit is still overriding the previous sit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. What we're gonna do, and then we're also gonna, did we do auto sits last time? Or were we just doing the walking? Just walking? Okay, so we're gonna also add in auto sits. So heel is a package of commands. Walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. Okay? Heel is all of that. Some people teach heel as a come to heel. I don't do that. That's a separate command. Okay? So super simple. Walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna cue in that word heel, and I find it easiest for clients to say the word first, and then you're gonna move forward with that left leg. Okay? So we have Toby on our left, correct? So when we say heel, we move forward with that left leg. Dogs have a wider hoof range than we do, so he sees this motion, and that's like his visual cue of now we're moving again. Make sense?
So you say, so sorry, say that again, you say heel first, then you step?
Correct. Yeah.
With your left.
Heel, then left leg. You could also do heel like this, but people, when they're thinking about two things at once, they tend to get jumbled up. So I go step by step, heel, then left leg like that. Okay? Now what we're also going to add in is when you come to that stop, make sure to slow down, stop. It would most likely be easiest to have your leash in your right hand with the remote for this exercise. Okay? So Toby, your leash over here. Okay? So when we come to that stop, we're going to layer in that auto sit. You're going to shorten your leash so that you're grabbing it closer to the collar. You're going to lightly press down on the butt, and you're going to tap, tap, tap as you pull up, and you press down until Toby sits, and then you're going to relax. Okay? So good boy. If he gets up, I pull up, I push down, tap, tap, butt down, I relax. So we're not saying sit here. Because if you say sit, then it becomes heel, sit, heel, sit, heel, sit, right? So it's just heel, dog sits automatically. It's built into the command. So every time you come to a stop, default should be implemented like that. Okay? The only exception to this auto sit rule is the weather. You know, like some dogs, if it's really cold, they don't want to sit down on the ground, or when it's snowing, it's raining, it's muddy, and stuff like that. I don't worry about reinforcing in those elements, as long as the dog's fine, you know. If I have a super reactive dog, I'll tell the owner, you know, we can see what happens, but sometimes when you don't reinforce that, the dogs regress their behavior, so I'll tell them it sucks. You can have a dog with a muddy butt, it's either a muddy butt and being non-reactive, or a reactive dog that's all muddy, right? So he has a trade-off there. So, if that's too much, we'll focus on one thing at a time. But if you can, it's super simple. You're just going to grab that leash again closer to the collar, lightly pull up, lightly press down as you tap until he sits. Good boy, relax, heel, left leg. Okay? Questions? If you see him shuffle, or he like might tuck in his butt, or like even scoot around, it's nervousness. It's okay. Work up through it after a couple of them, and once you realize it's like, oh, this isn't that bad, can put his butt down. Okay. It's very common with nervous dogs. People feel bad because they think they're making the dog more nervous. But when this happens, you want to look at, anxiety, fear, nervousness, even aggression as a stress response. Okay, you're putting them under stress with the e-collar. So he goes, oh, I don't know what to do. People go, oh my God. Then the dog never works through it, so it never builds confidence. You keep him under that pressure, you work through it, and he goes, oh, I figured it out. It wasn't that bad. Then the dog gets more confidence, we get this nervousness. Makes sense? So I actually have like 2 cases right now that did that exact thing. And they got super nervous and then started scuttling all over the place, like the first 2 to 3. Then once they figured it out. Okay? Questions? Can you go first? Okay. So, leash and remote in right hand. So the leash is going to be going across from you. There you go. That's fine. And they're going to just stand right here, okay? Good. You're going to relax. There you go. So you're going to cue that word heel first and then left. Okay?
Heel.
Yep. There you go. Now you're walking. And then whenever you're ready, you're going to slow down to that stop. Good. So go ahead and shorten your leash. That's fine. So if he sits by himself, we don't need to do anything.
Okay.
Okay. Now he sat in front of you because he wants to look at dad.
Right.
So go ahead and just pivot with them. Heel.
Heel.
Left leg. You got it. And forward. Slow to stop when you're ready. Yeah. And relax and praise.
Good boy. Yes, baby. Good
And heel.
boy. Heel.
There you go. Yep. Turn. Good. Stop when you're ready. Okay. And relax. Praise. 2 more.
Heel.
Therapist would agree no,
Fine. Good. Praise. 1 more.
Heel.
it's up to me to make sure that we were both triggered.
I'm going to come and stop when you're ready. And praise. It's good. So here, he was already receptive to just even that upward tension with the tap on some of them,
Yeah.
right? So here, when he sits by himself, we don't do a thing. Just praise. Good boy, right? So now, after you repeat this so many times, he'll start to decipher like, oh, if I just do this by myself, there's no tap. But if I don't do it, there's a tap. So then you start to see him opt. He wants to beat the punch. Okay, so like let's say I come to a stop as you progress, and he forgets to sit because he's distracted. Lightly pull up here, and yep, and relax. And I'll explain that in a moment. Is he forgets to sit, I will simply tap without even any pressure. Oh, sorry. Cool. Like as a reminder. Okay. Here he laid down, and on the scope of what dogs can do, nothing bad. Right? He's just getting comfortable. But when we deal with obedience, it's very black and white. Heel is walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop, not lay down, right? So, because we're human and logical, we go, oh, he's just getting comfortable, like no big deal, right? But when we start to go into behavioral parts, like the kid stuff, or the resource guarding, that gray area will work against you. Because he just thinks, I know I'm supposed to do this, but I decided to do this, and there's no consequence, right? So that simple thing can lead to, all right, well, mom stops and I stop to go pee on this, or I stop to go smell this, or I stop to do this, and he starts making more choices. So again, think of obedience as just clocking him into work. Once he's at work, it's his job to, of course, adhere to those standards, but it's your job to reinforce those standards. Because you're gonna get what you give. So if you see that lay down and you're like, it's okay, right? He doesn't understand that you understand why he's doing it. Like as an exception. Like, oh, you're hot, buddy, I get it. Like, you just need to cool off, I get it. He just thinks I did something and it went unchecked. So what else can I do? Okay. So questions about that? Nope. You see how easy that was? Just light pressure up, a couple of taps. He sits back up, we relax, and he thought about it again. I don't know if you saw it shortly after. He did think about it. Right there, he thought about it again, right? But he's going, do I want to? No, right? And the more you reinforce that, the next thing you know, you come to a stop and you just sit there and chill for like 20 minutes while you have a conversation. Now, the other thing about this is a lot of times, oh man, was it with you that I told the story to about the person who wasn't paying attention to her dog and another dog came up and then led to something? So when we're sitting with each other, right, like, and we're having a conversation, you're distracted, I'm taking your attention, that you're not being mindful of him, you know? So if he's right here by my side, I know he should not be getting in any trouble, or I'm keeping him out of harm's way, right? So I recently saw when I was driving, it was like somebody was talking and they had their dog like this, and somebody else had walked up with their dog like a reflection or something, and then they met, and then it blew up into like a little dog fight. Okay, now from what I saw, it didn't look like anybody got hurt, but because nobody was being mindful, right? Because the dog was over here doing its own thing, and the owner was just like talking, like, oh, blah, 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 right? And all of a sudden it fight. So here, if you're having a conversation, this control is not only for like practical things, but to keep you safe. So if I feel this, that shouldn't be happening. I correct it, boom. So then if something does happen over here, we're not at fault, period. It's the other person. My dog is under control, my dog is sitting at my side. Somehow your dog is off leash or is given too much leash, and without permission, without me knowing, something happened in response. So that keeps them safe in that respect. Does that make sense? Excellent. So we're gonna do, let's go to swap here. We're gonna do that. I'm gonna have you do the same thing, and then we're gonna move on to the next exercise. So up, tap, 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 and keep tapping and lightly pull to your left. Tap. I'm sorry. Turn like you were facing me. Okay. Lightly pull to your left. Tap, tap. Grab close. There you go. Tap, tap. Yep. Tap, tap. So what I was trying to get you to do, this is fine for now, is for you to use the tapping and a little bit of leash pressure to get him. It didn't need to be perfect. To get him to correct, right? Because what happened was you swapped handlers, but nobody said release. Nobody said break, right? So, but it's very common when I work with couples that the dog assumes when they're switching handlers, they're like, okay, I'm done. But remember, black and white, okay? So when you approach right away, I kick into, nope, you have to go back in position. But since he ended up over here, I keep that remote on and I use a little bit of pressure until the dog, general area corrects, and then I go, okay, cool, then heel. Because then again, to deter him from doing that in the future, okay? It's a little thing. The little things build up to bigger things. Okay, are you ready?
I'm gonna go with this one.
Okay. All right, heel.
Yes. Such a good boy you are. Good job. Good job, Toby. Thank you.
Now here, when you guys work with each other, right now he's doing it because she's over here. He is careful.
Say hi, doggy.
I've also said.
He is, because I've added something in, right, is when you're working with him, so like right there, your intention was to stop and get a sit. But what happened?
I don't know.
He kept going.
Oh, okay.
He was distracted. So yeah, he kept going. So by default, you would just go into the turn tap to bring him back, and then you try again,
Okay.
right? So even if your intention is to turn or tap or stop or whatever, if he's getting out of position, you always default to that correction to lock him in, and then you go to what you're gonna do. Okay? So it's a tiny thing.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever. All right, heel. Tap, 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 tap. Heel.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
You're fine. Yeah. I'm getting in the way too. So here, you see how he's getting the head? Turn, tap, and you got a dog tap.
One of our values is
Tap, tap. Good. Much better. Yeah, good. Praise.
Yes.
Try 3 more.
Good boy. Good boy. Heel.
Yep, yep, good. That's okay. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
So like here, has he done that in the week before you? During the week, crossing over like that?
Yeah, sometimes, but
Okay.
not like this.
So if it's too much, what I do, this is the exception to the left leg, is you'd say heel, but you move forward with your right leg to bump him off to the left side.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you walk through him, and it's uncomfortable because you're moving through him, but that's what deters him from crossing over so much.
Okay, all right. Okay. Heel.
Well, if you're going to defend your position, yes, if you're going to continue to defend your behavior.
Yep, good.
Yes.
One
Good
more.
boy. Good job. That's what you're doing. Heel.
Very good.
Good job. Perfect. Exactly what you're supposed to do.
All right, let's go and do a quick 180. There you go. Stop. Yeah. Very good. So just be mindful of him. Someone else. Yeah, my mouth. Okay. So, easy enough. Okay. Now we're gonna get into the hard stuff, or not hard, but you gotta think more. When we do our turns, we do the turns with specific leg movements. Okay. If we're turning left into Toby, I call this the crossover turn. You're going to be crossing over him. Okay. When we do that turn, you're going to lead it with your right leg, like this, 90 degree cut. Because if you turn with your left, if he's right on that leg, you're going to end up sending him out. Okay. Yep. Yep. And relax. Yep. And relax. There he goes. Good. So, the way that's going to look is as you're walking, and I like to use the sidewalk as my guide. So if you hug on the right side of the sidewalk, you want to slow down before that turn, of course. And then on the crack, I'll make that 90-degree cut. And the left leg, I'm going to cut him again, now I'm going the opposite way. So if you do this, you should stay, and if you're on a regular sidewalk, you'll be on the width of the sidewalk itself. You keep on that same path. So I'm just right, left, right, and on those right steps, it's a sharp 90-degree cut. Okay, so on the third step, you should be going the opposite way, and I'll coach you through this. If you do a soft right like this, which a lot of people do, then you end up going like this, and then you're punting your dog out. Okay, so for Toby, if this is his head here, when he sees this, a lot of dogs will naturally stop or pivot their head because they see you moving through and they don't want to collide with you. Okay. The second turn is going to be the 180 turn to the immediate right, which is what we've been doing for corrections. So if Toby would pass, it would just be like this. He'd pass, we would just do this, right? When Toby is paying attention, you have to communicate to him if you're making that turn. So same thing, we're walking, make sure to slow down first, at least 3 steps. Then I'm going to go left, so extend that leg out, right, left, and I'm going the opposite way. So it's left, right, left. Okay, so 3, the other one was right, left, this one's left, right, just like that. So what we're doing here, and I'm exaggerating of course, is for Toby, he's going to see this leg come out, you're going to start curving, and by the time you're coming this way, you should already be in line with each other. If you do this turn and he keeps going, he's not paying attention, you'll just tap and then pick up your pace to realign him. Okay, so we have our crossover, that's crossing over Toby, right, left, right, and then we have our pivot, which is turning away from Toby, left, right, left. Okay, questions?
And both times he needs to be on
Correct. All these movements keep them on the left. So if you ever had a dog, if you had a dog on the right, it would be same movements, but reversed. Okay. Other questions? So we're gonna start with the first one. We're gonna start with the crossover. That tends to be the hardest for people. Okay. So remember, if you're coming this way, right, exactly. Okay. Right, left. It's okay.
Better.
Up, turn, tap, 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 tap. Keep moving. Tap, tap, tap. Right, left, right. There you go.
That's order on me.
Right, left, right. So you saw how that one was awkward? Do you know why that one was awkward? 2 reasons. 1, you didn't slow down. 2, you started going for her. Okay?
Yeah, right.
So give yourself more space. I'm gonna have you turn at that crack at the center of the bench here, and turn at this crack over here. Okay?
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Heel.
Right, left, right. It's okay. You had a couple extras in there, but it's okay. You
Yeah,
got
so
it.
it's 3-step, right?
Yeah, on the 3rd step, you're already turning the opposite. Right? Yeah, so see how,
Now.
there you go. You got it. Yep, forward. You got it. Right, left, right. There you go. Let's try 5 like that, okay? Right, left, right. He got distracted by mom.
He did.
Right, left, right. Very good. 3 more. You got a scooter coming. Take your time. Right, left, right. You got it. 2 more. Right, left, right. Good. Last one. There you go. You got it. He thought about speeding up to mom again. So go ahead and slow to a stop. Yep. Very good. So those turns were good. The only time you really had trouble was here.
My mom.
Yeah, that was it. Okay. So your leg, like you were very pronounced. There was a good left turn. A lot of people tend to do it too soft. So the ones that you're doing over here, you saw he was just naturally pivoting with you. Over here, only thing was distraction. Okay. So now we're gonna go to those pivots.
Okay.
So we're gonna do now these are to the immediate right. So that's gonna be extend the left, back on the right, forward from left side. Okay. Whenever you're ready. Heel. Left, right, left. Very good. Right, left. You got it. Good. 3 more. Right, left. Excellent. Last one. Yep, good. Good move. Right. Left. Slow to stop when you're ready. Yep. Yep. Less pressure. There you go.
Yes.
For the physical, just enough where he feels it. Let the remote complete the sit.
Sorry.
Okay. So, good. So all those movements, you see how he got it pretty naturally, right? Like there was no tapping there, correct?
Yeah. Not I don't think I have once.
Right.
That entire time.
So
Or that other one.
the whole other than for mom.
The other from
Yeah, but for the turns themselves, there were no taps.
No.
So the reason why dogs pick this up so quickly is because we're using like dogs are masters of meeting body. Okay, so when I'm training dogs myself, I do these things naturally, so they progress faster because they're already reading my movements. But for you guys, now you have to think about it. Now you have you have Toby that you need to communicate with. Because again, you know your path, you know your route. He doesn't. So that's when these movements come into play. So when you're action on a walk, and it's like, oh, we're gonna make a left at the stop sign. Now you have to think about timing it, slowing down, crossing with that right, and going. Otherwise, you're gonna crash into each other, or he's gonna go all over the place, and then it's fixing it again, his heel.
Yeah. While we were training this past week, I noticed that a lot.
Yes.
Like turning left was.
Yes. Yeah.
But I was just running.
So this will fix that problem, okay? Now, I will say, if you continue to have that problem, it's typically one of two things. One, most often you're not slowing down. Okay, it's the most common thing where people say, Jesse, the dog's not stopping with me, they're not turning with me. I'll tell them, just you're not slowing down, right? Or if they are slowing down and the dog keeps going, they're not the right number. They're too low. Okay, so there's all these pieces working together that get us this level of attention. Okay, so his job, pay attention to you. Your job, make sure that he's paying attention to you, but then also communicate what you're doing. Okay, so we're gonna do one more run before we swap handlers. I'm gonna have you do all this stuff, but randomly. Okay, so you pick when you come to a stop, when you turn left, when you turn right. You're gonna use them interchangeably. Okay, whenever you're ready. Heel. Thinking about it. Good pivot. Right, left, right. You got it. Good turn. There you go. Good job. You got it. Good job. Was that a little test?
That was a little test.
Tap forward. There you go. Good. Yep. Perfect. Very good.
Yes. Oh, so good. Good job.
Good. Excellent. Questions about that?
No,
It's fun, huh?
it is
So
fun.
learning all that stuff?
When you see and learn it, it feels good.
Yeah. So, I mean, this tool gets a bad rap because of how people think it's being used. But when you talk dog language, like, it's very quick. Okay? Like, the treat stuff, I'm not against it. But it's just, it's not applicable here.
But if we're praising him right now, would a T word be appropriate?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like, I don't care if you give treats. I just want to make sure that they're given at the right time and we're using them in conjunction.
Right.
You know, like if it was just, if you came to be like, Jesse, I want you to fix resource guarding, and I want you to fix this with this, and I want my dog to come every single time, I don't care what the environment is, with only food, I would tell you find another trainer. I'll say, one, it's not going to work, and then two, I'll say find another trainer, because I know we're not going to get that, okay? My whole thing, and how I built my business is, I know with this tool, I can get a result, right? That the owner wants. And I know with other tools, they only get me so far. So for puppies under 6 months, we do food. We do treat stuff, luring, right? Because that's all we expect for a puppy under 6 months. When a puppy is 6 months, then I tell owners, you can train to this level. Because their brain starts learning at an adult scale. So then I can start pressing for more stuff. But, treats, maybe we use it in conjunction. Otherwise, not really necessary. For you guys, if you wanted to incorporate food, the way I would incorporate it is when you come to a stop and he auto sits, I would reward those. When I have to tap them, then I don't remote board those, right? So then he starts to go like, oh, when I sit by myself, I get something, right? So it incentivizes them. And when we get to other stuff, like when we do recall, I don't mind if using food there. Tell me to call the dog. Using remote and food to pair things together is perfectly fine. The other thing is for most people, it's too much stuff to think about. Right? Like thinking about the food, thinking about the dog, thinking about the leash, thinking about the e-collar and all that stuff. It's too many things, so I try to remove as much as possible to make it simpler. But now you have a core kind of foundation of how this tool works that if you want to incorporate it. Okay? So let's go ahead and tell them break, and let's swap handlers. Break. Okay, break.
I know that word.
His ears. Did we talk about release last week?
No,
Oh, okay.
we never got to release.
Oh, okay. So we'll cover that today then.
Okay.
So when Toby's job is done, you would say the word break.
Right.
That's well, unless you have one from before.
We were using the word free.
That's fine. So I say break. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you guys can just use free.
Okay, let's use, I like free. It works for him.
That's fine.
He's learned plays. So he knows to go to his little place in his room, and then when we say free, that's when he
He's
breaks
done.
out.
Yeah.
Of course, he'll leave early if we're too long, but he's pretty good.
Technically shouldn't happen.
Right, but that very rarely happens. He's very good at
The
it.
F word.
The F word is what he
Okay.
So what you're gonna do here is heel left leg, and I'm gonna have you start with the left turn. So one more time. That's the crossover turn, beginning with that right leg, left leg, and then right leg again to go back to the opposite leg. Okay? Whenever you're ready. Right, good. Right, left, right. That's okay. You got it. If he sits, don't worry about it. Just keep your momentum. Right, left, right. Yeah, can you see how like when she's turning in, how he's chewing up? Yeah. Right, very good. Go ahead and pick up your pace here. So when you slow down to that turn, it's a bit more drastic, but your turns are all good. Right, left, right. Good. Slow to stop. Perfect. Very good.
Yes.
Questions about that?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So now we're going to do the pivots. Those are going to be the turns to the immediate right. So that's going to be the left, right, left. Okay?
Yeah.
Good. Good. Good job. 3 more. Excellent. You guys know steps in break?
Yeah.
You gotta tell me what it is up here. Last one.
I should have seen it yesterday.
Very good. And slow to stop when you're ready. Very good. So, pretty easy. So same thing. I'm gonna have you, speed up, slow down, stop, stop the heel, left turn, crossover turns, and your pivot turns. Okay, however you want. Good pivot. Crossover. Good crossover. there a cat there when Paul distracted him?
No.
Okay, slow stop. It looked like, cause he like looked over to him when he kind of stood up,
Okay.
and then he sped up, so I thought there was a tap there.
Oh no, I didn't even see.
Good, right? So no problems here.
No.
So, on a couple of those, there was no slowdown. We did them correctly right now because we're in training mode, right? We're doing this back to back in a very short space. So, what I suggest, one, to get this in your muscle memory, is before you start your walks, again, do his business, and then, you would do 5 heel to stops, 5 heel to crossovers, and then 5 heel to pivots. So you be within a small space, and then you start your walk, just to warm yourself up. Because the hard part is going to be, as you're walking, employing these things, okay? If you're making just a soft left, you just lead with your right, and then you just keep going that direction. If you're turning to, making a soft right, then it's turning with the left, but you're not doing that pivot dance like you would for the complete 180. The reason for the 2 types of turns is you're not always going to have space to make a crossover, and you may not always be able to do a pivot. So if I have people behind me, but I have the space, I can whip around and still stay on the sidewalk and not get in anybody's way. Okay, so that's the reason for having both. Let me think here. If you find it's not as smooth when we're practicing or applying it at home, we're not slowing down, or we're not at the appropriate number. It's usually one of those 2 things. For the dive bombs to mom, if that continues to happen, you want to play with your number. Okay, so like the 30 was enough to like get him back on track, but he would still think about it, or you'd still later on see him try again. Okay, I would use that to my advantage. So one thing that you could do is whenever I see something the dog struggles with, I use it to my advantage. So let's say walking towards Paul, he keeps forging. You can use that to really teach him to lock in on the handler, right? So then if I'm at 30 and I keep having to turn to get the Paul, then I go to 34 and repeat, and 36, and maybe you hit 38, maybe 42. Finally you're at 42 and you can walk all the way up to Paul, and he doesn't do that forging behavior, okay?
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's going to be super difficult if you do this is when it's owner, dog, owner, walking in front, okay? You'll see a lot of times the dog wants to walk with the person in front, okay? So a way around that is just to put the dog with the owner in front, or you can do side by side, so like owner, dog, owner. Typically with the dog in the middle, because if both people are over here, a lot of times they try to get in the center, okay? So if it's owner, dog, owner, it makes life a little easier. But if you want something to work on, you use that to your advantage. You put somebody in front, Toby's back here with the other person, and we're correcting them for trying to forge ahead. Okay? Questions on any of that?
My question I have is like, so when he's in, we go out, right, and he does like, he likes to sniff a lot.
Sure.
So is the idea that once like the first few minutes of the walk, he's free to do whatever, and then once I put him in heel mode, he can't sniff anymore?
Correct. Because he's clocked in, right? So heel is very strict. Now there are exceptions. So like my dogs, they can walk with me in a tight heel and keep their nose on the ground, and they don't get too distracted. Right? They'll stay with me. But I've had other owners who let their dog sniff, and then they get distracted, and next thing they veer off. Right? So I go, for a dog like that, I don't allow it because I know what it's going to lead to. Yep. You can relax. There we go. I know it's going to lead to them making a mistake. Otherwise, if he can sniff the ground but stay locked in, I'm not really opposed to it, unless like the entire time his nose is on the ground. Because at some point I expect he's going to get too distracted. So, but when he's clocked in, he can't sniff, he can't pee, he can't poop, he can't
And if
breathe
he
dog.
does veer off, that's what we do.
Tap, bring him back, right? And we wouldn't say heel, you just tap to bring him in. So that he thinks, oh man, if I veer off, if I stop to sniff, if I try to lay down, if I try to greet a dog, if I try to pee on something, if I try to randomly poop, blah, 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 it's correction. So my job is to just lock in until I hear free, and then when I hear free, I can get my business out. It's like when I get dogs that pee on 100 things, the owner's like, how do I stop that? I'm like, you just keep walking and you remote them. And then the dog will learn, I have my opportunity in the beginning, maybe in the middle, and at the end, and you'll see them learn and empty themselves because they know there's no more options during the walk. Otherwise, if they know they can pee on 100 things, they're going to save it because it's more fun to pee on 100 things. So my Chihuahua did that when I first got him. He peed on everything.
He didn't used to, and now he's starting to pee more. He's starting to mark.
Sure.
Like he went from like 1 pee a walk to like 3, 4.
Sure.
But it's not like
That's not a good habit.
I don't care if he pees 20 times on his own time, right? If I say free and he's running around and he pees on that tree and 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 all that stuff, I don't care because it's his own time.
Right.
But when we're on that walk, that's when I care. Okay. Now I get dogs, and when you got to go, you got to go. So if he were to just stop and then like he's peeing and he's just like letting it all out, that's just because he had to go. He couldn't hold it anymore, right? But stopping to pee on every pole that we pass is, I don't allow that.
And tell me this, how much, so if we go on an hour walk, what percentage of that should be free versus heel?
I do 80-20. 80 heel, 20 play. Okay? So like, 45 minutes would be structure, 50 minutes would be play. You get more when you have him heel like this because he has like you saw how much focus you got.
Yeah.
It's more exercise because it's here as well. It's physical, you know? So we have another dog. She's a 6-month-old kind of terrier mix. And when I first saw the consultation, I saw her. She was like all over the place, very anxious, very nervous. She like started lunging and barking at me. And the owners were like, "Oh my God!" Right? I'm like, "It's all right. Your dog's in stress. Like she's not aggressive. She's really stressed out." And I said, with e-collar, she should calm down. I was like, "That's the theory." I did one class with them last Friday, and I saw them yesterday. They were standing right there, and I walked up, and the dog was just sitting there, calm as can be. And they're like, "Do you see this? Do you see how calm she is now?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Yeah, she's calmed down in the house. She's calmed down outside. She's not trying to run away. She's not nervous of everything because of the structure." Okay, but I told them the same thing. What you practice with your dog is what your dog becomes. So if you always practice like free time, play, no discipline, you get that kind of dog. When you practice discipline and with reward with the positive stuff, you get that kind of dog, right? Like here he's been sitting there chilling this whole time. And last time we had the strollers and the kids and the scooters and stuff, and he's been chill because that's what he's practicing now, okay? So I'm not opposed to play. I'm not even opposed if you want to take a walk where you're just like, you know what, I don't want to do heel. I want him to have a nice, relaxed, hour-long walk. I don't care. At the end of the day, he's your dog. But that's more for the owner. That's not for the dog.
Right.
And, he doesn't think like, yay, I get a day off and I get to do a walk where I don't have to heel. He doesn't think that way. The owner thinks that way. But if they want to do that, I go, did the dog do well during the week? And they go, yeah. I'm like, then he earned it, in my book.
Some of the best walks I've had with him were honestly this past week. Because he has a knack for sniffing everything and stopping nonstop. But being able to just walk with him the whole time and not doing nothing has been wonderful.
Yeah. You can do more stuff.
Yeah.
And remember, it should never be an argument with your dog, right? So as you start to get more control and he's behaving better, yep, good job, and relax. People do get complacent, right? Because they think the dog is learning to be a good dog, but it's not. He's being a good dog because you're reinforcing everything, okay? So what happens is owners, they see so much success, they get complacent and they think their job is done. Next thing you know, the dog starts to regress, right? And they're like, what happens today? And, oh, I got away with it tomorrow. Or their number's too low, because they've had so much success with it, but he might toughen up to it. Maybe there's bad connection or whatever. Is that if you ever feel like, man, this walk was not like last week or the walks that we have had, I assess that. What is the owner doing? What is the level? Are we reinforcing everything? Are we making sure we're correcting, right? So the more consistent you are, yes, the less you have to not practice, the less you have to correct over time, especially if you're at the appropriate number. But even to this day, if I'm walking my dogs and my dogs operate, my pit is on a number 20 with a collar that's lower powered than this one. Okay, she's super sensitive to it. But if she gave me a hard time one day, I'd be right up there at the 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever I need in order to get her to be compliant with them, right? I go by what I know the dog is capable of doing and what number is going to get me that, okay? I don't go by what I know the dog can do and hope that they'll do it at a lower number. Does that make sense? Other questions?
Is there, because we use a harness
Oh, sure.
with Toby all the time. Very rarely do we actually use the collar. Could we use the harness as part of the training as opposed to a collar?
So my only issue with the harness is one, if old habits come back, which is this, okay? People start to pull back. Is harness promotes pulling for one, but two, you can untrain your dog, right? So technically you can walk your dog and whatever. Technically you can walk them up to no leash with this device. But what I see happen in some cases is the owner subconsciously starts to do this pulling back behavior, and the dog feels the pressure and they start pulling again, and then the owner's remoting the dog for pulling, but we have conflicting messages. Harness says pull, remote says don't pull. And harness is natural because it's physical pressure. E-collar is unnatural because he's not meant to have his neck contract. So dogs will always listen to what's natural. So then the owner's trying to stop the pulling, but they keep pulling back and the dog keeps pulling. Okay, because that's what's natural to them. So like when I get owners whose dogs go after them, they're scared of the dog and they're trying to correct the dog for being aggressive. So this is unnatural, this body language is natural. The dog goes, yeah, you're blasting me on 100, but your body language says you're scared of me. I'm gonna listen to that. You know, so it's kind of like in the movies, if you see someone like, they got a gun and they're shaky, right? And then the person they're pointing the gun is at, like, gun at, they're like, I know you're not gonna shoot me, you're scared. They're listening, they're reading that body language, right? So technically, yes, you can walk them on a harness, but I always just tell people, stick to their collar or whatever, just because of that. Otherwise, if he's doing well, I personally don't care.
I think I got a couple more questions. So releasing, are we going to do some of that today?
Yeah, just say right here. Go and say free.
Free?
Yep. And just walk over here.
Free.
Now he's free. Okay, so the release is super simple.
That's simple, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. What you want to do though is, you see how she's stationary for like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Is what we don't want to do, super common, is as you're walking, free. As you're walking.
Oh, we want to stop.
Get that sit first. Stop, get that sit.
You're free. You're free, buddy. You're running back and everything.
So you can't jump, okay.
Exactly. Stop, get that sit first, wait a moment, then you give that cue of free.
Okay, and then next question. We're having a dog. He's going to have a sleepover next weekend.
We're watching your sister's dog.
My sister's dog, Cousin Manny. And Cousin Manny's a good dog. He's gone through this training. Not with you, but he's done his field training.
Sure.
He's never had a problem with Manny, but he's also never had another dog in our home.
Sure.
So is there a right way to introduce that?
What I would suggest is just go for a quick walk.
Yes.
Okay? Go for a quick walk. If he's already met him and stuff and he's perfectly fine, he's dog social, 10-15 minutes. And when you bring the dogs in, bring Manny in first, then follow in with Toby.
Okay.
Because if there's going to be any territorial behavior, what happens is if you bring Toby in first, I've seen dogs whoop around and be like, hold up, like, you're not coming into the house.
Yeah.
So take them on a walk together.
Yeah.
And then walk Manny in.
So we had my dad bring a blanket yesterday that smelled like Manny
Sure.
to the home. I don't know, we thought that would help.
Yeah.
But okay, I do like this idea. So walk first, and then bring in Manny to the house first,
Then follow with
and then
with
follow
Toby.
with Toby.
Yeah, so you should avoid any whip around.
Yeah. Is there anything we can learn or teach him from maybe a resource guarding standpoint, or anything while Manny's in the house? Because I find it to be like a good opportunity to maybe do some training.
What I would do is,
and then we're gonna bring him here next week, Saturday, most likely. Manny
oh, that's fine.
and Toby, right? That should be fine. Yeah, both of them. Okay.
My first thing was actually going to be just put everything away. Yeah, just put stuff away. Because you have to keep a close eye on everything.
At all times, right?
Right. Because like, let's say you leave an object out specifically to work on something, right? Is you have to be paying attention. So if you know the object is here and then you see Manny walking towards the object and Toby's over there, right away I'm watching the scenario, watching Toby. Is he gonna tense up? Is he gonna run and charge across the room to like guard it? And then the moment you would see any tension, you tap him. But also you have to be ready to jack it up on the collar. Because you're setting up a potential extreme, right? Whereas if it escalates, you have dog fight. And so I'm ready on that dial. In case I tap him on 30 at this stage, there is the potential where it'll trigger him.
Sure, he's still, I tend to, we have to tap him 2 or 3 times. You just can't try to get him sometimes to address.
Right.
Like in a situation like that.
Exactly. You have to get it done very quickly, right? So then I'm ready to turn it up just in case. Ideally, it would be he looks at Manny, what are you doing? And you tap him, and he's, all right, it should be literally that simple, okay? But my concern is if it's not that simple and he decides to escalate and charge anyways, then you have to be ready to jack it up, right? Because once that fight starts, if it does, most people put their hands in, and that's how people get bit.
Yeah.
Whereas I use a remote to get the dog to disengage, and
So how does that happen when one dog has a remote and you disengage your dog, but the other dog is still completely...
typically because that dog wasn't the aggressor, unless they're the type to react and like continue, is when you disengage, they're just like, all right, it's done.
Yeah, man, it's not the
Yeah.
What in a scenario where he is not the aggressor and another dog comes at him, there's nothing I can do with the remote at that point.
No.
At that point, it's like Toby.
At that point, I let Toby defend himself,
Yeah.
and I help him kick the dog's ass.
Yeah, okay. You're right. That's what I would expect.
One thing is like, and I put a video up about this actually, about a gentleman who had his chocolate lab, and he was literally just walking out the front door, and a neighbor was walking their like 70, 80-pound pit, a kid. Dog pulls the kid down and attacks the guy's chocolate lab, right? And he's pulling his lab back. And the lab was trying to defend itself. And the lab was the size of a dog, it's a 70, maybe 90-pound dog, right? And I'm talking about the video, I was assessing it, and I go, if I was this gentleman, I would have let my leash go, because my lab's not going to go anywhere. They're trying to defend itself, right? Let it defend itself, and then as they're engaged, I can work on disengaging the pit with my lab, you know what I'm saying? But he kept pulling it back, and unfortunately, the dog got a bunch of bites on him, and you can see it in the video. That finally the lab just goes, I give up, and like goes like this and tucks away because it couldn't fully defend itself.
Right, because he was getting pulled.
He was getting bit and everything, right? And then the guy's trying to be non-confrontational, and I'm like, it's not about being non-confrontational. I'm like, it's your dog. You know, like my dog is my priority. My client's dogs are our priority. We just had it happen right now. We had well, I told you about the dog, and you know, my job is to protect my employees. So the first thing I did is, as soon as I saw the dog come, is I put myself in the middle. I started kicking the dog. You know, and then finally the dog came in, and I got it one time good in the mouth, and it went, right, and it ran off and ran to the owners, and I said, I apologize, but I got to protect my employees. They're like, we get it, we understand. You know, like, this should happen. So
that just happened to our friend in Denver. She was walking her dog in a car, and there was a trailer, like an RV. The pit just jumped out of the RV, no leash, no collar, just attacked her dog. She let her dog go, defended itself, and it just ran away home. Like half a mile away, ran home.
oh wow,
And then they found him home. Right.
it's crazy stuff, man. My first instinct, I know people tend to run, and they promote running, unless I absolutely have to, like it's a stupidly big dog. I confront them. I've not had a dog yet come after me in that kind of scenario, not retreat, because they're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Most dogs aren't confident enough to continue to fight unless they've been trained to do so, which and that kind of dog is going to do something like that, like it's trained, right? Theoretically speaking, canines are not that well trained.
Sure.
But a standard dog coming at you off leash, you're more than likely going to be able to scare off one without any physical conflict anyways. Or two, if it happens and they get one solid kick in the face, no, shit, this isn't worth it, they run. So.
It's good to know.
Yeah, no, by all means, I tell people, because it happens. Clients ask me all the time, Jesse, you know, off leash dog, what do I do? I go, defend yourself, defend the dog. Because as soon as you try to run away, as soon as you pick up your dog, they're a target, and you now the dog that's coming at you is for sure gonna keep going because they see it. You've now given them confidence of like, oh, you're scared of me, so I'm really gonna come at you now. But if you come at them with conflict, most dogs are like, screw this. I've bit too much. I've bit more off than I can chew. So, okay.
You said the Zoom class, is that, so that's towards the end?
No.
Or no?
You can set that up as soon as you want.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just we get these first 2 classes down so that you have good concept of how the remote works. And then the Zoom, you can set up, you know, sometime in the middle of this week. You don't have to wait.
So does Zoom replace one of the 6? No.
You get 2 complimentary Zooms.
Gotcha.
So you have 6 in person, up to 6 in person.
So we're still going to be meeting at the park.
Correct. In a week.
4 more times.
Yeah. So like some clients, they need more Zooms than they need in person. So it's up to 6 in person plus 2 Zoom. Otherwise, an in-person one, if they used up 2 of their Zooms, they could turn an in-person one into a Zoom session if needed.
So we also got to schedule the Zooms with Maria.
Correct.
Okay.
So you would just email her and say, hey, we'd like to schedule a Zoom session, regarding resource guarding, and then she'll say, okay. She'll book it sometime during the week when I have time, and then I would still see you on Saturday.
Okay.
Okay.
If his training for this goes well this week,
Yeah. And then just make sure we have something on hand. And if anything, when you give him any bone marrows this week or any treats, have his collar on. Don't do anything with it. As he's eating his treat to get him used to it. So he doesn't think like, oh, the collar's coming on, like, oh, what's going to happen, Give him the treat with the collar already on, leave him alone, let him enjoy it. So when we start to incorporate it for the training stuff, it won't be anything of the ordinary.
Yeah, because I've been trying to keep the collar on a little longer after his walks and putting it on a little before we go.
Sure.
We do take it off. It's not always on.
No, yeah, it's not supposed to be always on. It's only on when you need it. He's on free. Yeah. When clients take the dogs to dog parks and stuff, I tell them leave the collar on so the dog starts to associate that the collar doesn't always be.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get, because we put it on and you can tell he gets stressed.
Yeah.
We give him a piece of wooded cheese every time.
Sure.
He loves that, but you can tell he knows that.
Yeah, it's because you're doing a lot of remote right now. You're doing more than you would typically do
Right.
down the line.
Right.
It's normal. Just continue doing what you're doing, continue applying it, continue using it proactively. That's what gets him over it. He's like, oh, okay, like I get how this works now. And then with the positive stuff, and then he'll be just fine. Okay. Awesome. Well, it was good seeing you guys again.
Yeah,
If anything else, let us know. Otherwise, good job.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sure.